What if the war movies praised for realism are the same ones veterans quietly avoid? Not because they are poorly made, not because they exaggerate, but because they remember too much. These films didn't aim to entertain. They aimed to recreate. And for some who lived it, that line was never meant to be crossed. Halfway through this list, you'll notice a pattern. It's not the noise that breaks people. It's the accuracy. And one film on this list still carries a warning veterans don't say out loud. Number 8. In Country, 1989. This is not a battlefield movie. That's exactly why veterans say it hurts. In Country follows a young woman trying to understand the uncle she never met and the uncle who never came back the same. Most of the story happens far from any jungle. It unfolds in quiet rooms, at small-town gatherings, inside conversations that stop halfway because nobody knows how to finish them. Veterans who watch this film often say it felt invasive. Not dramatic, not loud, just uncomfortably familiar. The film shows how the war didn't end when people came home. It lingered in silence, in short tempers, in long pauses, in the way certain topics were avoided completely. Bruce Willis plays a veteran who never fully rejoined civilian life. He works, he functions. But there's a distance that never closes. Veterans recognize that distance instantly, not as acting, as behavior. The way he listens more than he speaks, the way he reacts instead of responds, the way memories surface without warning. What makes In Country difficult is its patience. It doesn't rush toward closure. It doesn't explain everything. It lets discomfort sit. That mirrors real life in a way most war films avoid. Veterans have said this movie captured what they struggled to explain to family members, that the war followed them home, quietly, constantly. The final moments are not triumphant. Number 7. Hearts and Minds, 1974. This film doesn't recreate the war, it exposes it. Hearts and Minds is a documentary, but veterans often describe it as more unsettling than fiction. Not because of what it shows, but because of how calmly it presents contradictions. Some officials speak with confidence. Families speak with grief. Soldiers speak with hesitation. The gaps between those voices are where the discomfort lives. Veterans who saw this film in the 1970s often say it felt like being placed on trial without warning. The film challenges the language used to justify decisions while quietly centering the people who lived with the consequences. There's no narrator telling you what to think. The footage speaks for itself. And that's what makes it hard. What unsettles veterans is recognition. The interviews feel unscripted because they are. You see hesitation, deflection, frustration, the way answers trail off. Veterans say that's exactly how conversations felt at the time. Nobody had the full picture, everyone had an opinion, and very few had peace. The film also shows how disconnected the public conversation was from the lived experience. Veterans have said this gap made returning home harder than being overseas. Watching the film later reopened that frustration. Not anger, something quieter, a feeling of being misunderstood on a national scale. Number 6. 84. Charlie Mopic, 1989. This film feels like footage that wasn't supposed to survive. 84. Charlie Mopic is filmed entirely from the perspective of a military cameraman, and that single choice changes everything. There is no sweeping music to guide your emotions, no polished framing to signal importance. The image shakes, conversations overlap, moments begin without warning and end before you're ready. Veterans say that discomfort is the point. That's how it felt. There is no sense of narrative safety here. Scenes don't build toward satisfying conclusions. They don't resolve. They simply happen. Veterans have said this mirrors memory itself. Not organized, not dramatic, just fragments stitched together by circumstance. One moment bleeds into the next without explanation. What makes the film especially difficult is how unfiltered it feels. The sound is uneven. The pacing drifts. Silence stretches longer than expected. That lack of polish makes it feel real in a way larger productions often avoid. Veterans who served in similar conditions say watching it felt like opening an old box they had sealed away for years. Not because they forgot what was inside, because they didn't need to see it again. The actors don't perform heroism. They perform routine. Waiting, talking, arguing over small things. The boredom is as present as the tension. Veterans have repeatedly said boredom is something most films get wrong. This one doesn't. It understands that long stretches of waiting shape people just as much as moments of urgency. Number 5. The Boys in Company C, 1978. This movie rarely appears on mainstream lists. Veterans remember it clearly. The Boys in Company C follows a group of young men as they move from training into deployment, slowly realizing how little preparation actually prepares you. Veterans often say the film captured something most war movies miss entirely: disorientation. Orders change without warning. Explanations never fully arrive. Leadership feels distant, sometimes invisible. The men don't understand the larger purpose behind what they're doing, and neither does the audience. Veterans say that confusion is not a flaw, it's accuracy. In real life, you rarely knew why something was happening. You only knew that it was happening and that you were expected to move forward anyway. The film avoids spectacle almost deliberately. There are no sweeping moments designed to energize the viewer. Instead, it focuses on erosion. Confidence fades. Humor hardens into sarcasm. Relationships strain under pressure that never fully releases. Veterans have said it reminded them how quickly idealism disappeared. Not in one dramatic moment, but slowly through a series of small disappointments and unanswered questions. What makes this film especially hard is its refusal to offer release. There is no clear victory, no moment that ties everything together neatly, just accumulation. Scene after scene, responsibility piles up while clarity stays out of reach. Veterans describe this kind of exhaustion as familiar, not cinematic exhaustion. Number 4. Casualties of War, 1989. This is the film veterans hesitate to discuss. Casualties of War is based on a real incident, and veterans say that truth is exactly what makes it so difficult to face. The story doesn't center on large movements or dramatic turning points. Instead, it narrows in on decisions made under pressure. Small moments, quiet choices, or the kind that follow people long after everything else fades. Veterans often say the most unsettling part isn't what happens later. It's how ordinary everything feels at the beginning. The conversations sound normal. The setting feels routine. Nothing appears out of place. And then, slowly, something shifts. Veterans recognize that shift instantly, the moment when fatigue, fear, and stress begin to outweigh judgment. The film refuses to soften consequences. It shows how silence can turn into agreement without anyone meaning it to, how disagreement doesn't always become action. Veterans have said this mirrors situations they witnessed or heard about during their service, not because people set out to cause harm, but because exhaustion clouds clarity and pressure narrows perspective. Sean Penn's performance is unsettling not because it is loud or exaggerated, but because it is controlled. Veterans say they've encountered people like that, not villains, not caricatures, just individuals pushed beyond limits without guidance or support. That realism makes the portrayal uncomfortable rather than dramatic. What separates Casualties of War from many films is what it chooses not to do. It doesn't offer easy explanations. Number 3. Hamburger Hill, 1987. Veterans don't describe this movie as painful, they describe it as accurate. Hamburger Hill recreates the real battle for Hill 937, a location that mattered strategically for only a brief moment and emotionally for decades. Veterans often say this film captures the single most frustrating feeling of the war: repetition without purpose. The men advance. They are pushed back. They advance again. The same ground. The same resistance. Over and over. Veterans who fought in similar operations say that loop is exactly how it felt. You didn't feel like you were moving forward. You felt stuck inside a cycle. What makes the film difficult is its refusal to decorate the experience. There's no dramatic build. No inspirational speech that changes everything. Fatigue accumulates. Morale drops. Jokes stop landing. Veterans have said that watching it reminded them how exhaustion reshaped personalities. People became quieter, shorter, less patient. The environment itself feels oppressive. Mud, heat, noise that never truly fades. Veterans often mention that the film captured how the surroundings wore you down just as much as the task itself. Not through spectacle, but persistence. When the hill is finally taken, the moment feels hollow. The number 2. Born on the 4th of July, 1989. This is not a war movie. Veterans say that's exactly why it hurts. Born on the 4th of July focuses on what happens after service ends. Returning home, navigating spaces that feel smaller, conversations that feel awkward, a sense that something fundamental has shifted and nobody else can see it. Tom Cruise's performance surprised many veterans, not because it was dramatic, but because it was vulnerable. Veterans have said the emotional volatility felt familiar. Anger without direction, frustration without release, a feeling of being celebrated and ignored at the same time. The film shows how identity fractures. Veterans recognize the struggle of reconciling who you were before, who you became, and who the world expects you to be now. That conflict doesn't resolve cleanly. The film doesn't pretend it does. What makes this movie difficult is its emotional honesty. Veterans say the hardest scenes aren't public moments, they're private ones, alone in a room, in conversations that stall, in realizations that arrive too late. The story challenges simplified narratives. It doesn't reduce experience to slogans or easy lessons. Number 1. Platoon, 1986. This is the film veterans mention first, and hesitate longest. Platoon wasn't written from imagination. It was written from memory. Director Oliver Stone drew directly from his own experience, and veterans say that authenticity is impossible to miss. The film doesn't feel staged, it feels remembered. What unsettles veterans isn't any single scene. It's accumulation, the exhaustion, the internal conflict, the way fear and confusion blur judgment. Veterans often say Platoon captured how the environment changed people faster than they expected. The division between characters isn't symbolic. Veterans recognize it as real. Different ways of coping, different ways of surviving mentally. Some hardened, some questioned, some broke quietly. The film doesn't give the audience a stable viewpoint. You're pulled into uncertainty. Veterans say that mirrors reality. You rarely felt confident you understood the full situation. You reacted, you adapted, you hoped. Platoon also avoids presenting service as heroic or villainous. It presents it as complicated. Veterans appreciate that restraint because it doesn't tell them what their experience should mean. When Platoon was released, many veterans praised it publicly. Privately, many admitted they couldn't finish it, or they finished it and felt drained for days. The memories came back uninvited. Platoon doesn't exaggerate. It doesn't soften. It remembers. And for those who lived it, remembering can be the hardest part. So what do these movies have in common? They didn't fail veterans. They honored them by refusing to lie. These films aren't avoided because they're bad. They're avoided because they're accurate. If you've seen any of these, which one stayed with you the longest? Drop it in the comments. And if you know someone who lived through this history, share this thoughtfully. Subscribe for more stories that go deeper than nostalgia. Some films aren't meant to be rewatched. They're meant to be understood.